Auburn set to take on Oklahoma. Can Auburn slow down this high-powered Oklahoma offense? Let's talk about it right here inside the town.
The Auburn Express. You are now listening to the War Report, Lawtown Podcast. With your boy Ike Jones.
Lobtown Auburn versus Oklahoma. Oklahoma coming inside of Neville Arena, coming to Neville Arena, ready to take on the Auburn Tigers 16-5 on the season. They are 3-5 in conference. So all 5 losses this season so far coming inside of SEC play, the inaugural SEC season for Oklahoma in the SEC has been up and down. It's been up and down for them, but we are here to talk about it here at Lobtown, part of the Auburn Express, powered by the War Report. Share this content with somebody out there so they know what's up as we begin the conversation. For this Oklahoma team in regard to Auburn, I think the biggest concern for Auburn is going to be how to slow down this Oklahoma offense, right? So Oklahoma is one of, if not the best offense in the SEC right now. They just are. When you look at the metrics, when you look at the analytics, they have one of the, they have top 1 or 2 3-point shooting percentages in the SEC. They have top 1 or 2 2-point shooting percentages in the SEC. When they get on a heater, they just don't miss, right? And so they can come at you in waves offensively in ways that other teams can't. So Auburn has to figure out what they need to do defensively to slow down what Oklahoma is doing. Now, the teams that they've lost to in conference, Alabama, they were there at Alabama and lost that game. They scored 79 points in that game, though, but they gave up 107. And we'll get to the defensive side of that. Texas A&M, they lost the home game, scored 78 points in that game. Georgia, they had a little bit of a tough time, 62 points there. Against Texas, they lost that game 77-73. And in their most recent loss, they played Texas A&M again and lost that game 75-68. So only 2 of those teams sub 70 performances as far as their offense is concerned. It's a good offense. They score points. The problem for Oklahoma is they haven't been able to play very good defense. Already mentioned they gave up 107 to Bama, gave up 80 to Texas A&M, 72 to Georgia, 77 to Texas, 62 and 62 to South Carolina and Arkansas, respectively, and then 75 to Texas A&M, 67 versus Vanderbilt. Now, that 67 versus Vanderbilt is a little bit of an anomaly, but they scored 97 in that game, right? So they put up points. The bottom line, point blank period, this team scores points, and they've been scoring points on everybody. They just haven't been able to stop a lot of people, which is why they've been losing games. But in the games where they've defended better, they've won those games for the most part. They only had one game where they gave up less than 70 and lost it, and that was Texas A&M. Less than 70 and lost it. They didn't, and that was Arkansas. They won that game, So pretty much, if you score 70 on them, you're going to win, just because they can't keep pace typically is what that looks like right now in SEC play. But yeah, the issue for this team, Oklahoma, is defending. But let's talk about the offensive end and the things that they do well there and focus on that for what Auburn has to get done in this game. The big thing for Auburn, though, is figuring out how to stop them offensively, getting them in situations where, because you don't want to give up a bunch of points and still win the game at home. So you want to figure out, how can we slow down this offensive attack? An undersized team that is going to run, they're going to get out. They remind you a lot of really Ole Miss, right? In the way that they're comprised. They're not a very big team, but they're going to get out and they're run, very much like LSU. They're just going to get out and they're going to push the tempo, push pace up on you, and try to get out before Auburn can set their defense. So it's going to be incumbent on Auburn to be really solid in the way that they're playing transition defense and making sure that when they get into their half-court situations, they're being sound with how they're switching, so they're not getting mismatches for some of those guards because they're gonna, Auburn switches a lot defensively. They can't afford to play zone against a team that shoots to three as well as Oklahoma does. So they're going to have to figure out how to play sound defensively without getting, Janai Broome, who's not moving as well, out front against, Jeremiah Fears, right? So again, it starts really with Jalen Moore and Jeremiah Fears offensively. They have a three-headed monster, right? Jalen Moore, the leading scorer for them, 18.2. Jeremiah Fears at 16.1. And then Duke Miles, the other guard, there at 10.1. So three of their players averaging over 10 points per game or 10 points per game plus. So three double-digit average scores there. As a team, shooting the three, 37.9%. They've got, oh gosh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys that are shooting 37% or higher. That includes Jalen Moore and Duke Miles. Now, Jeremiah Fears is not shooting the three particularly well this season at 27.4%. But he's a great scorer. He's more of a guy who scores better from two than he does from three. But they've got some really good three-point shooters on this team. So Auburn's going to have to be on their game, right? Now, that's not to say that, Auburn should necessarily be worried too much, but it's a team that can score in bunches. So I say that to say no lead is safe. Just because you've got a big lead, Oklahoma can score points in a hurry and close the deficit really quickly with the small ball lineups that they put out there, with the speed in which they can get up and down the floor. They can make that thing tight quickly, right? And so now Auburn, one of the best three-point shooting defenses in the conference, right? So, it's not something that Auburn is not accustomed to having to go out there and do, which is defend good three-point shooting teams. But they're going to have to be on their P's and Q's in this game versus Oklahoma in order to be able to do a good job of keeping leads safe. In fact, Auburn is the best three-point shoot percentage team defensively in the country. So they defend the three the best against a team that shoots the three the best. So this is, the strength on strength when it comes to that. Auburn's going to need to do their best duty against a team that can score in bunches like that. Additionally, when you look at this Ole Miss team and the pace in which they want to play, now they're not the fastest team as far as adjusted tempo in the conference. They're actually kind of in the middle of the pack, but what they like to do randomly is vary that pace, right? They'll get into a slower paced offense and try to work through some things to try to get good shots, but then they'll jump out and they'll jump into a press when they need to be able to try to change the dynamic. And they have the quick athletes to be able to do that. And they've got, again, the ability to shoot the ball from the perimeter, which allows them to go out there and be at a higher tempo, and the game feels like it's avalanching on you really quickly. They just saw that in the Vanderbilt game recently. Now, it was at home for them, but they scored a ridiculous amount of points in the second half of that game to just kind of pull away from Vanderbilt there and flip the entire momentum of that game. But that's what that team is capable of. The question is, can they do it on the road inside of Neville Arena? That yet to be seen. When you flip it around from the other side and talk about the advantages for Auburn, there's a very clear and distinct advantage for Auburn in the post in this game. Oklahoma, not a very big team. Auburn has more size than Oklahoma by and large, which means Auburn should, number one, dominate in the paint as far as rebounds are concerned, which means Oklahoma going to the rim is going to be something that's going to be more difficult for them to finish inside. They do a good job of getting to mid-range shots and knocking those down, particularly Jeremiah Fears. He likes to use the mid-range. He attacks the basket really well, but he can get to his mid-range, and his pull-up game is strong. But defensively, Auburn should have the advantage on keeping Oklahoma out of second chance points, keeping Oklahoma away from the rim and easy buckets as long as they're not getting into the transition game. And offensively, they should be able to dominate and get offensive rebounds and second chance points. Now, one of the things that you can look at for Oklahoma as well is this Oklahoma team hasn't been great at forcing turnovers, and they've turned the ball over pretty frequently this season, particularly within conference play. So though Auburn is not a team that's known for forcing turnovers, just being solid defensively, I think this is a game where you could have opportunities to turn your defense into offense and really get out and push transition. One of the things that they struggled with against LSU was, okay, LSU, they had the size advantage, but LSU was just like, okay, we're going to clog and congest the paint. We're going to switch everything out top. So we're going to make the catch is more difficult for your guards to get into your offense. And then we're going to disrupt what you're doing in the paint and be in the passing lanes. Oklahoma has the athletes to be able to do that. I don't know that they have shown yet in this season that they have the defensive acumen to be able to pull that off. But I'm sure they're going to try to employ a very similar tactic and try to be disruptive in the passing lanes versus Auburn in this game. But this is going to be one of those games where I think Janai Broome needs to be 7, 8 assists. Like, I mean, not need to be, but I think he can get to that level. I think Janai, if they play how I think that they are going to play defensively, could come close to a triple-double in this game if he's being efficient with the way that he's passing over the double teams. Notice I said over because he's going to have the size advantage. He's going to be able to see those really well. If he's passing efficiently over those double teams that are going to come at him, he could have a triple-double in this game. Because from a point standpoint, he should be able to, even if he's not getting a lot of clean looks at the basket offensively, between transition and second chance points, he should be able to get his double figures there. Rebounding, he should have a distinct advantage. He should be able to get the double there. Look for Janai Broome to potentially have a triple-double in this game versus Oklahoma if he can be efficient in his passing offense as well. But again, I think Auburn turning defense into offense is going to be crucial for them in this game because of the way that I think they're going to try to congest the paint. And then the other question that you have to ask yourself is, how well can Auburn shoot the three again in this game? Back inside of Neville Arena, did they find the magic again versus Ole Miss? Oklahoma is one of the better three-point defensive teams in the conference. They're in the top 4, 5 in the country in defense against the three-pointer. So I don't expect Auburn to get a lot of clean looks. Again, I think they're going to switch a lot of stuff so that they're not giving you a lot of clean operations in that way, which is why I think that, Janai Broome and his presence is going to be important to getting open looks for those shooters. And you just got to knock down the opportunities that you have there. But they're going to pester you out front. They're going to switch a lot of stuff, and they can test really well against those threes. How well can Auburn get clean looks and be able to knock down three-point shots efficiently to be able to be in this game? Because, again, the danger with a team like Oklahoma is if you have a lead and they start to come back, you feel the need. It's like, oh, they're hitting the three. Let me go down and try to hit a dagger three to stem this, momentum that they have going on. And you get into this back and forth pace of play where it's like they hit a shot. Now we got to hit a shot type of thing, especially as they start to close the distance on you. If that happens and they get on a heater, you have to resist that urge, run your stuff, take good shots, and just continue to do what got you there. Even if what got you there is hitting threes, make sure you're getting the best shot available for yourself and not getting into this match type of situation. Unless, again, you just hot like that and you just go down and, heat checking it, cool. But don't feel like you have to do that against this team because that's where you can get into it in a bad way. You have a couple of trips where you're, taking ill-advised early shots in the shot clock. They come down and they hit another one. And then, you start that spiral in that way. The last thing that Auburn needs to be able to be guarding against in this game, even though Oklahoma's not great at it, but it's always going to be the foul trouble situation when you're in these types of games. The good thing for Auburn is they have enough guys that they can go and they can play smaller, right? So if Dylan Cardwell's in foul trouble, even though they lose some size and rim protection, you can move Janai Broome to that 5. Turtle's been playing well for you. Jaheim Hudson coming in and playing a little bit, though he doesn't have the same kind of feet that a Cardwell has or Janai Broome has. He's been good on the defensive. He's been very solid on the defensive end. So him being back there and being in position where he needs to be, he's doing a much better job of talking on defense and just understanding what his responsibilities need to be out there. So you can go small with him. You can put Chaney Johnson at your 5 essentially against this team and still have decent size there. Chris Moore has been playing a little 4 this season when they've needed to. I said this a little bit versus Ole Miss. This may be a game where where Ja'Kai Howard could come in and play some minutes for you because they have more smaller players. So his size and athleticism versus some of their athleticism is another 5 fouls that you can throw out there. And the athleticism that he has can be very disruptive in those. So maybe get an opportunity to see more Ja'Kai Howard in this game. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how Auburn does against a team that, as Bruce Pearl said in his presser, this is a team that in the net is in the top 50, the top 40 in the net. And you just haven't seen a lot of top 40 net teams coming and playing inside of Neville Arena over the last couple of seasons. So this isn't a game that you can just overlook that doesn't feel interesting because you don't see them as one of the top teams in the conference right now because of their conference record. They've won 3 of their last 4. They're getting hot offensively. Auburn needs to lock in and make sure they continue to play the brand of defense that allows them to be championship level, and then do the things that got you here offensively, which is playing smart and disciplined offense, taking open shots, making sure that ratio of buckets to assisted buckets is pretty high, right? You want a lot of assists per opportunity that you have out there. And when Auburn is doing that, Auburn is playing at their best. So looking forward to seeing what happens in this game. As always, before you get out of here, I want to hear your thoughts. What do you think is going to happen in this game? Give me some score predictions right down in there. What are your concerns for this game versus Oklahoma? And we will be right back at here doing another watch party coming up this Tuesday. So if you're Green Name Gang, check in with me. Of course, the pregame is open to everybody. Y'all make sure y'all tap in with us to get final thoughts on this game coming up on Tuesday inside of Neville Arena. Before you get out of here, please share the content with somebody. Like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we'll be back at you guys with more great War Report content. Until the next time, and as always, War Eagle.